Bobi Wine is an award-winning Ugandan singer and actor turned politician. Bobi Wine is, however, just his stage name. His real name is Robert Kyangulanyi Sentamu, though I will be referring to him as Bobi Wine in this video. So, Bobi Wine has over the years gained prominence around the world for his entry into Ugandan politics and his opposition towards Uganda's longtime president, Yoweri Museveni, who has been president of Uganda for over 3 decades now. Bobi Wine is very well known within East Africa for his music. He has even had a song feature in the soundtrack of the Disney film Queen of Katwe. From a young age, he had always been interested in music. Therefore, as a result, he studied music, dance, and drama at Makerere University in Kampala, where he graduated in 2003 with a diploma. He began his music career in the early 2000s after releasing his first singles. These singles helped him quickly climb the charts and brought him fame and success within East Africa. Bobi Wine has more than 70 songs to his name. The music released by Bobi Wine often contains references to social issues faced by Ugandans because he believes he can use his platform and fame to advocate for change within the Ugandan society.
I decided to make injustice my enemy, and that is when I started singing what now the regime calls political music, trying to address those injustices.
The leader of a musical band group called the Firebase Crew until it broke up, after which he went to start on another group known as the Ghetto Republic of Uganda. He owns a commercial production studio in Uganda known as Firebase Records as well. Something many people outside of East Africa may not be aware of is that Bobi Wine has starred in various films produced within Uganda. For example, in 2010, he was cast in the drama film Yogera, and in 2015, he was the lead role in the film Situka. He has also worked on a number of films, including Divisions. He has even starred in his own reality TV show named The Ghetto President. After many years of being a musician and using his music as a platform to advocate for change in Uganda, Bobi Wine had decided that he would get into politics and become a member of parliament in Uganda.
I reached a time when I realized I could not keep just talking about them through my music, and that's why I decided to get into actual politics so I could have a more formal platform in the parliament of Uganda to address these issues, and that's what I've been doing.
His time campaigning, he would go door to door speaking directly with people within his constituency, which made many people within Uganda become very interested in him as a candidate. As a result, he managed to win his election and became an official member of Uganda's parliament in 2017. And as he began increasing in popularity within Uganda, he was able to aid his allies in their campaigns to become members of parliament as well, beating out members of Uganda's ruling party. However, much of his political career has not been smooth sailing. Bobi Wine has been arrested and charged on many occasions as a result of his participation in protests and criticisms he has waged against Museveni. A good example of this is in August of 2018. Bobi Wine had claimed that the Ugandan police had purposely at his vehicle and killed his driver during clashes between protesters and security forces. He tweeted out, quote, "Police shot my driver dead, thinking that they shot at me. My hotel is now blocked off by police and the SFC," along with a photo of his then deceased driver.
The plan was to kill me, and I had just left the seat of the car I was in less than 3 minutes when my driver sat there and he was shot dead. So I'm convinced that it was a plan to assassinate me.
This was during an election campaign where Bobi Wine and Museveni had both traveled to the northern town of Arua to campaign alongside their respective candidates. However, as the Ugandan president had arrived, the motorcade carrying the president had allegedly been attacked by opposition supporters, who had allegedly obstructed the path of the motorcade and thrown stones at Museveni's vehicle. During the president's visit, there had been clashes between security forces and protesters. It was allegedly at that time that Bobi Wine's driver had been shot by Ugandan security forces. The following day, Bobi Wine had been arrested by Ugandan security forces along with 33 other members of the opposition, and was being held on charges of treason and inciting violence and the unlawful possession of a firearm. It was reported that when Bobi Wine had appeared before court, he had allegedly been tortured by Ugandan security forces, and his lawyer had reportedly expressed concern about his state and appealed that Bobi Wine was in need of urgent medical attention.
You were tortured, yes?
Well, I was tortured, I was beaten and humiliated.
After a large protest movement and heated debate within the Ugandan parliament, the charges against Bobi Wine were withdrawn by the Ugandan prosecution. However, after Bobi Wine was released, he was immediately rearrested again and charged with treason again, however this time in a civilian court.
That is the government of Uganda, only to rearrest me later and charge me with treason.
He was eventually allowed to be released on bail, and during the period he was released, Bobi Wine had traveled to the United States to receive medical treatment for the injuries he had received while in custody of the Ugandan security forces. Even though, as you could imagine, the situation had been very traumatizing for Bobi Wine. However, Uganda's president had once made light of the situation to a group of his supporters during one of his speeches.
Where our young friend Bobi Wine was
tried to fight with security people. I think they beat him a bit. Where I said, okay, let me study how he was beaten. Now, when I studied, I found the man had been beaten properly in the right way.
In addition to making light of the situation, the Ugandan president also defended the actions of the security forces, claiming that the reason Bobi Wine had been beaten up by security forces was them acting in self-defense as they were attempting to subdue Bobi Wine.
They were looking for him because they had caused some problem the day before. Then these people tried to attack them, tried to box them. They also boxed them back until they subdued them. And after subduing them, they didn't beat them again. But these people acted properly. It was self-defense.
Bobi Wine has said he believes the actions taken against him were an attempt to silence him speaking up.
I believe this is a move to intimidate me and to intimidate anybody else that is inspired by my quest for freedom.
Other charges Bobi Wine has faced throughout his political career was in 2019 in August, when he was charged with the intent to alarm, annoy, or ridicule President Museveni for his role in the Arua incident. On the 22nd of April 2019, Bobi Wine was detained while attempting to make his way to a planned concert at his private club in southern Kampala, which was cancelled by police. He has on multiple occasions complained that the Ugandan authorities have effectively banned his music within Uganda. In 2019, he formally announced his campaign to run for president of Uganda in the elections taking place in 2021. He had become the presidential flag bearer for the National Unity Platform. His nomination was seen as the biggest challenge to Museveni's power in the over 32 years he had been president of Uganda, and immediately following his nomination, he was arrested by Ugandan security forces. His election campaign had on multiple occasions been derailed by Ugandan security forces because campaign rallies had been forbidden by the Ugandan government, citing the COVID-19 pandemic. Though many criticized the policy, claiming that the government was using it as an excuse to prevent opposition candidates from reaching out to potential voters. As a result, he was unable to launch his campaign's manifesto at the National Unity Platform headquarters because it had been blocked off by Ugandan security forces. At another point during the campaign, he was arrested and detained for 3 days in eastern Uganda after local police claimed that he had too many supporters traveling alongside him, which was in violation of the number recommended by Uganda's Electoral Commission to prevent the spread of COVID-19. His arrest was met by widespread protests around Uganda, which led to clashes between protesters and security forces, resulting in thousands of people getting arrested and several protesters dying during the clashes. Bobi Wine had claimed that in the midst of the clashes, his bodyguard had been killed. He had reportedly died after being run over by a truck belonging to the military police. Recently, Bobi Wine had tweeted about his bodyguard, saying, exactly 2 years later today, "We've never forgotten you, comrade. We've never forgotten who ended your life. We've never given up on the cause for which you paid the ultimate price. Keep resting well. Francis Senteza Kalibala. #We are removing a dictator." The election did, however, end in defeat for Bobi Wine. According to the Ugandan Electoral Commission, Museveni re-won election with around 58% of the vote, and Bobi Wine managed to maintain only around 35% of the vote. However, Bobi Wine refused to accept the results, claiming that the election was the most fraudulent in Uganda's history. But his problems did not end there, as shortly after the election had ended, the Ugandan military had arrived at Bobi Wine's home, and he was placed under house arrest on the 15th of January, tweeting out, quote, "We are under siege. The military has jumped over the fence and has taken control of our home." The military surrounded his home and did not let anyone in or out for several days, until the Ugandan High Court ordered that security forces had to end the house arrest. Bobi Wine had challenged the election results in court. However, his team and him later withdrew their case, claiming that the judges were biased in favor of Museveni, tweeting out, quote, "Today we announce our decision to withdraw the election petition from the Supreme Court. The court has manifested unprecedented bias, partiality, and double standards. Declining our request to file evidence was the last stroke. We are taking the case to the court of the people." Bobi Wine has expressed his desire to campaign for president again in Uganda's next presidential election, except this time he could potentially be facing off against Museveni's son rather than Museveni, who he has at times got into public feuds with on Twitter. He looks committed to be continuing his fight to end the reign of Museveni and his family, which he has described as being a military dictatorship running Uganda.